Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 13th, 2023 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission. This meeting and hearing of the commission will be held in person at the town meeting hall. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if we have technical problems that interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item should make plans and are encouraged to attend in person versus virtual attendance. Okay, so do we need a roll call at all? If Bill's not on?
No.
We don't need a roll call. Okay. All right, so the next item after calling the meeting to order is public comment period. Is there anyone that has a public comment, perhaps about something not on the agenda? Okay, the record should show the answer is no for public comment. No one else wants to talk. Number 3A is the approval of minutes of June 8th, 2023. Does anybody have any discussion, substance on it? No. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes June 8th, 2023? Second?
Second.
All in favor? 400 approved. Next, we have the minutes of June 22nd, 2023. Any discussion at all? No. Could I have a motion to approve June 22nd, 2023 minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Kent.
All in favor? 400. Item 4, request for certificate of compliance, 69 Beaver Brook, DG Homes LLC. It's a Burlington wetland bylaw project. Is there anyone here for that project?
Yes, I am. I'm Domenico Gallinelli.
All right, so you should introduce yourself, who you're affiliated with, or where you live, and then we will move into this for you.
I'm Domenico Gallinelli. I am the owner and the contractor of the project. I was there pretty much every day overseeing the entire project. I live in Burlington.
Nice to make your acquaintance.
Thank
Okay. All right, so what this gentleman has done is requesting a certificate of compliance. There was a site visit yesterday, I gather. Eileen or John, would you like to make any comments, and are there any issues?
Sure, I will. So as Nico said, he was the contractor and the builder, the developer for this project. It was a single family tear down and rebuild of a single family in the buffer zone to a locally regulated wetland. So that's shown on the as-built plan here. Everything went pretty much, I think, as designed. They did a large infiltration system in the, I guess that's sort of south end of it. When we went out there yesterday, he was just in the middle of dealing with just a possible stormwater runoff situation in the back. He added an extra pipe, which you can see in the pictures from where we saw it, and we think that will deal with any, the runoff is going to be funneled off to the side. It will ultimately go towards the wetland, but it will no longer be, sort of funneled between the retaining wall and the neighbour's fence. That pipe will bring it out to the gravel trench behind the retaining wall. Anyway, all 12 trees were planted as expected. Grass is coming in pretty well. The retaining wall looks really nice. Both the driveway has trenches on both sides. I have no issue with you issuing the certificate of compliance.
Everything is stabilized sufficiently?
Everything's looking good.
All right. Any comment, Ed, any further comment on it?
No, I thought the job looked really good.
All right, anything from you folks on the left?
Took a drive by there. I agree with that. Looks good.
Okay. Then could I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for the project located at 69 Beaver Brook Road?
Move.
Second?
Second, Kent.
All in favor? Okay, the certificate is issued by a vote of 400. Was there a performance surety posted?
There was, and I forgot to make a note, so I'm just looking it up right now. Do you remember what it was?
2,500, I believe.
2,500 sounds right.
So,
I'm sure he remembers correctly.
so this gentleman would probably like it released.
That would be great.
Okay, okay.
I don't
Is
think
there
we
any
have it.
reason why it should, any part of it needs to be withheld?
Did we say anything about growing seasons?
I just closed it, actually.
Oh, no, I don't really see any reason why not.
All right, okay. And how about on the commission? Anyone on the commission feel any part of it needs to be withheld?
No.
No. All right, could I have a motion for a full release of the performance surety of $2,500 for 69 Beaver Brook Road?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, by a vote of 400, the surety has been released.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice job on the.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Enjoy.
Appreciate it.
Over minutes.
Okay. All right, next. Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting during which time we are acting upon a request for determination of applicability filed by Dish Wireless LLC for the proposed installation of equipment and underground fiber within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetland. The property is located at 328 Cambridge Street. The commission will thereafter issue a determination of applicability. The application is being heard under both Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, which is the Wetlands Protection Act, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. And you can get a copy of the application by writing to conservation@burlington.org. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. My name is Edward Parry, it's P-A-R-E. I'm an attorney at Brown Rudnick, One Financial Center in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm here representing Dish Wireless this evening. Dish is a new wireless competitor in the market nationally and in Massachusetts. So they are in the process of co-locating their antennas and equipment on various, for the most part, existing infrastructure. In this case, there is a 120-foot, what we refer to as a unipole. It's a tower with the antennas. There you go. Thank you, Eileen. So that's the tower structure that we're attaching to. It's been there since, I think, 2002. It is within 100 feet of the wetlands. The entire area of the tower site has been previously disturbed. The nice thing with these co-locations is that Dish can use the tower structure itself. There is also room on the existing steel platform to locate its equipment cabinet, which attaches to the antennas via cables that run inside the pole. So the real reason for us being here this evening is that we're seeking a special permit from the planning board and going through this departmental review. We certainly need the approval of the Conservation Commission. As you'll see on the left-hand, on the lower right-hand corner of the, yep, that's fine. In the lower right-hand corner, there is an existing vault where Dish will grab its fiber, and it proposes to install conduit. I think it's about 45 feet in total length on that plan. It'll come out of the vault, then over to the Dish H-frame, which has the fiber box. If you look in the middle of this plan, that's where the electrical transformer is. Again, Dish will tap into the transformer. I think it's about a 25-foot run over to that same H-frame. The wires will connect from the H-frame to the equipment cabinet on the existing steel platform. And that's really the extent of any ground disturbance at all. There is a ice bridge which goes from the equipment cabinet on the steel grate over to the monopole, and that's where we get the connection up to the antennas. So each of these sites needs fiber and electricity to operate. That's what generates the signal and provides the coverage. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's kind of the extent of the impact on the wetlands buffer at this point anyway.
Great, thank you for that summary.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Eileen or John, would you have comments for the commission?
Oh, I think it's me. So, So as Mr. Pear explained, they're proposing to co-locate some additional equipment on this existing pole. He explained it very well. I'm just going to just pull up this one here so you can sort of see, this would be it from the side. They're adding the ice bridge, and they're adding a few extra parts. This is what it looks like right now in the compound. So it's a pretty busy sort of compound in there. They're just adding equipment, all of which, as far as I understand, is within the existing fencing.
That's correct.
The reason that they are here with you is that because this fencing is only really maybe 20 or 30 feet or something like that from wetland. The commission approved the building of the DCF building right there at 328 just a couple of years ago. The only reason I had these pictures up is because we did have one question, which is that this area around the compound looks pretty bare. It's mulched, but we're wondering if it is also treated with Roundup.
So that's actually a question for the owner, not for the applicant. It definitely, all around the outside of the fence, looks like there's no vegetation at all. Looks like they're using herbicides around the outside of the fence, very close to the wetlands. So we'll have to contact the owner of the site.
Right. It won't hold up or affect, yes, I should be clear about that, this determination at all. I don't have any issue with anything going in here. Some of the trenching, I think, was going to be closest to the wetland, is what I recall.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so let's see if the commission has any comment on this. Looks pretty straightforward, actually. Kent, any comment on this?
Nothing to add.
All right, Indra?
How many days will it take the work?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How many days to complete the work?
How many days to complete the work?
How long will it take to do the work?
How long will it take?
Oh, to do the work? It should be a couple of days. The only reason I hesitate is because the tower is being extended by 10 feet, so there needs to be a flange put on the top of the tower, and then our equipment attached to it. So that's probably going to be longer than a couple of days. But the equipment installation will be a quick drop onto the steel existing frame, and then the H-frame and the utilities. I would say it'd be a couple of days.
So there will not be any disturbance in the wetland?
No, nothing to the wetland, nothing outside. All of our work is within the fence compound.
fence.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Ed?
Just concurring with what John and I saw yesterday as far as vegetation beyond that fence. They should be considering something to fill in that gap all the way around.
Right. So you'll keep us posted on that, John?
Right. And also, the extension, the 10-foot extension in the height, I would imagine that's something the planning board will be discussing in their special permit here, public hearing.
Right.
Can I ask a question just connected to that?
Sure.
Will that be added by crane?
I expect it will be added by crane.
So we might just maybe add something about making sure the crane is also located outside wetland areas. I'm sure they would. But it'll have to be outside the compound, but the crane itself should be, I'll just add.
It could be. I'm surmising that they would bring a crane in at 120 feet, I guess.
Right.
Some kind of crane or bucket truck,
It's
something.
just gonna-
I'm not going to do that. I can assure you that.
Okay, one question. Is the trenching, I assume for wires or utilities or something, is that going in the direction of the wetlands, or is it on the other side away from the wetlands?
I'm going to, the wetlands is
inside
hitting
the
west.
fence. It's inside the
It's
compound.
totally, so the trenching is not outside the fence? You
Oh, no, it's all inside the fence. Everything we're doing is inside the
don't have
fence.
to answer. No, sir. Okay. Okay. I thought that there was some minor trenching outside the fence line. Okay. All right, so, I guess that's it for the commission. Anyone else have a comment on this? All right, so we have a draft negative conditional determination. I'm sure you know what that is.
I do.
And, okay, and so what we'll do is review it, or amend it if needed, probably not, and then we'll just call for a vote, and you'll be on your right.
Okay, terrific.
Okay, so John or Eileen, would you be?
Yep, I will.
help us out, please?
I was just getting myself confused there with screens. It's coming? Okay. So this is for the Dish Wireless LLC. We had a lot of plans in the application. The applicant proposed to install equipment on an existing steel platform and associated fiber and conduit within an existing compound closed by a chain link fence. The work will also include an ice bridge connecting the platform to the monopole. Should I add something in there about the pole being extended? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters.
Okay. The work was within the 100-foot buffer to BVW, and the trenching work would be approximately 50 feet from the wetland. The Commission found the installation of the equipment and fibre would not detrimentally affect the BVW. That wetland boundary was approved when the office building at this address was approved in 2019. You're voting to issue a negative determination. This decision is only for the work as we described tonight. Prior to beginning any construction on site, sediment barriers shall be installed by hand between the wetland and the enclosure and inspected by Conservation Department staff. That could be wattles, compost, socks, or hay bales. All excavated soil shall be disposed of in a legal manner. No tracking of sediments onto public roadways shall be allowed. I was thinking we could just add something there about the crane placement. The usual thing we say about on grass only, not in the wetlands, okay? If you guys are okay with that, not in wetlands. There should be no work within the 100-foot buffer, wetland buffer outside the fenced enclosure except for the crane, if a crane is to be used.
Correct.
There should be no filling or grading of the property under this decision, no dewatering on this site unless we've reviewed a dewatering plan, no cutting of trees under this determination without consultation with staff, and we may have permission to check on the operation as they go along, and any non-compliance shall be deemed a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act.
All right, so do you have any questions on,
I do not, thank you.
it's pretty minimal, to be honest.
Pretty straightforward, thank you.
Yes. All right, so any questions from the commission? All right, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and the State Wetlands Protection Act for the project located at 328 Cambridge Street for Dish Wireless LLC?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 4-0-0, you have a negative conditional determination.
Thank you very much.
So,
Thank you, have a good evening.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next. Okay, we have, notice is hereby given, the Town of Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting during which time we'll act upon a request for determination of applicability filed by LTF Real Estate Company, Inc. for the proposed parking lot expansion within bordering land subject to flooding, locally regulated riverfront area, and the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetland at 186 Middlesex Turnpike in Burlington. The Commission will thereafter issue a determination. The application is being heard under both the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, which is the Wetlands Protection Act, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, and a copy of the application may be obtained by emailing conservation@burlington.org. Folks, good evening.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Frank DiPietro. I'm a civil engineer with VHB. With me is Lindsay Tane, one of the brilliant young engineers who basically did all the work for this project. And so I already told the staff, but any hard questions, please ask Lindsay, if you don't mind. We're here.
Will do.
Thank you. We're here tonight representing Lifetime Athletic. And really what we're looking to do is really a two-part thing. Going back to 2016, the project was approved by the Conservation Commission with an order of condition issued. A certificate of compliance was also received for the project. When the planning board approved the project in October of 2016, they reserved a land bank, additional parking, some 20 parking spaces right along the site's frontage with Middlesex Turnpike. So part one of this project is we're looking to add those parking spaces in. I'm going to take a step back, and the second part is adding some additional parking spaces, but I want to talk about the reason why that's happening. So if you recall, when this project was originally built, right across the driveway was an empty development. That is now being developed for the Lifetime residential facility. That property provided a lot of additional overflow parking for the folks at Lifetime Athletic. Prior to that project being approved, we had approved a office building at that site. On the other side of the driveway coming in from Fourth Avenue, there was going to be a parking structure that was going to have a couple of hundred additional spaces that would have been utilized by Lifetime Athletic. So that didn't happen. The parking did not get built. What Lifetime is running into at this point in time is a surplus of customers and not enough parking. So they're looking to go ahead and try to increase the parking. They're going to utilize those 20 spaces that were land back in 2016. In addition, so if you wouldn't mind directing, the land bank spaces are right along Middlesex Turnpike, right down over there. Some spaces are in there. We're reconfiguring that. We're hooking those spaces into the existing drainage system, adding a new catch basins. All the runoff from that area was previously approved. It's previously met all the standards for both the Conservation and Planning Board. You wouldn't mind moving up a little bit higher to the additional space. We're adding in a little bit lower, I'm sorry. So right just below the building itself, right now that area is a green area. We're looking to add another row of parking on the outside of an existing row of parking, a drive aisle behind it, and having a smaller green space. That area we're proposing to essentially have its own drainage system that has two catch basins with deep sumps, hoods, has an infiltration system that has an overflow out into the main drainage system for the entire site. The third area is the area right where it says existing vegetation to be preserved. Right to the right of that, there are existing spaces in there. They are currently the compact spaces. We're expanding them a little bit, adding 2 more spaces, repaving that area there, and that drainage will go down into the existing drainage system for that entire area. Overall, we're adding about just over 9,000 square feet additional impervious area. Almost all of that is in the area where we have the new drainage system for. And we're looking at something like about 19,000 square feet of total site disturbance, including the original land bank parking. We have provided details on the system itself and what's going in there. We'll be happy to answer any questions. We are going before the planning board. We're scheduled to go before the planning board next Thursday. There may be an issue with the quorum, so we're not sure we'll be at that meeting. But just to let you know, we filed a minor engineering change with the planning board that essentially mirrors this application. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for that summary. All right, so, John, are you doing it? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's,
All right, so stick with me here. So there's three areas of additional pavement going in, parking lot expansion. The one closest to Middlesex Turnpike, you had previously approved, you reviewed it, you reviewed the drainage, you approved the stormwater system, they just didn't build it.
could you point to where that is,
That's-
the plot that's previously approved?
That-
Right in
yeah.
front near Middlesex Turnpike?
Yeah. So that's where they're planning to build something that you've already approved. You already issued a certificate of compliance, so.
Is that already impervious first?
No, it's grass, it's landscape now. So when Connor Nagel from VHB called me and asked, what process they should use to actually pave something that you had already approved to be paved and they didn't get around to, even though it's in bordering land subject to flooding and riverfront, I figured it's probably easier to just require an RDA. We've already reviewed all the stormwater, we've approved all the drainage structures, so that seemed reasonable. The other areas are areas that you have not reviewed. You haven't reviewed the drainage, you haven't looked at calcs, you haven't looked at their stormwater structures in advance, and they exceed the 5,000 square foot disturbance under the stormwater bylaw. So I'm going to recommend that you approve the bottom part, the part that was landscaped under determination, under negative determination and require a stormwater permit filing for the other work. Because you haven't, it exceeds the threshold and it was not previously approved.
Was it in the original application for this, or was it changed?
For this RDA,
Yes,
yes,
it was,
it
okay.
was. But so you're looking at basically 19,000
He means previously,
previously when?
So-
the NOI, sorry.
Right, so the 10,000 square feet near Middlesex Turnpike, that's the stuff that was land bank was previously approved. The 9,000 plus square feet of the two little, the little area and then the new parking, that was not originally approved by the Conservation Commission. That's the area I think that John is talking about.
Okay, so the area to the left of that blue line is gonna be parking.
Correct.
Got it.
One row of parking and then the 24-foot drive aisle behind it.
All right, so, I think even though it's gonna come back to us as a stormwater permit, if we have any comments on what we've seen so far, since it's in the application, perhaps we should just,
Well, it's an RDA application. Did you look at stormwater calculations or anything like that?
no, I didn't look at that.
Right. So, I mean, generally you don't approve a project like this.
I'm not
under-
suggesting we approve it.
Right,
I
under
just may have
determination.
comments to offer.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So with that as an introduction, perhaps before we go to the commission, we should ask, out of total of 19,000 square feet of impervious surface, is it a true statement to say that the area that was previously approved was 9,000?
The area that was previously approved was about 10,000 square feet.
10,000. So the new impervious surface is 9,000.
Right.
Okay.
And the area of disturbance will be slightly more, they'll be within a couple of feet of the edge of pavement, so maybe 92, 9,300 square feet, but it's close to
I
that.
get it. All right, we'll go to the commission, and I guess mostly focus, if you have anything to say about other, don't hesitate, but mostly our focus will be on the southern portion there, on the easterly portion there, I guess. I think it's easterly.
Right.
Yeah, at the bottom, right near Middlesex Turnpike. But you can comment on anything since it's all in the application. Kent?
So how many total spots, like with the 10,000, 9,000, how many are you talking?
So, we're adding 39 spaces over what exists right now, about 500 something?
Let me check the total number.
Like 580 or something like that, I think, or 60?
Yes, because we're losing the off-site leased spaces. So we're adding an additional 39 spaces here.
On-site.
It's part of the 10,000 that's, or like John said, under the approved, and then,
No, the bylaws.
So, just to sort of separate a little bit more clearly, the 20 spaces that we're adding along Middlesex Turnpike, that's roughly about 10,000 square feet of
Okay.
impervious area. It's already been pre-reviewed and whatever, mitigation's been put in for that.
Yep.
The 9,000 square feet, which is 19 additional spaces of that 39, those are the areas that would likely apply under the stormwater permit. There are drainage calcs for that. Those have not been reviewed by the commission at this point in time. Be happy to get you that information, but again, we haven't given you that information. To that effect, though, we've looked at that. We have a drainage system that allows the water to be treated and the pollutants removed, TSS removal, also infiltrated into the ground. And then there's an overflow from that area that goes into the original on-site drainage system for off-site flow. The whole Northwest Park is in a planned development district, and one of the base requirements of the PDD was that we would, if we ever changed, we needed to increase the recharge from a given site by a minimum of 10%. So, granted, this is a small drop in the bucket of the entire 126 acres of Northwest Park, but we've demonstrated that we're adding about 300 cubic feet of increased infiltration in that area. That roughly right now, between the pervious area where the water would flow directly into the ground, that's about a little more than a 10% increase for that 9,000 square foot area. So we've met the PDD requirement. We are adding a relatively insignificant in the whole course of things, but we are meeting the PDD increase of 10%. So there is an increase in recharge as well from this.
Okay.
Can I ask, this is more of a zoning question, so you're going to be losing about 9,000 square feet of green space?
Yes.
And this is in the aquifer district, and I think you need 40%. The PDD doesn't override the aquifer requirement for 40% green space. Will this loss of green space put you below 40% on this lot?
I will check that. I don't think it does, but I will check that.
Okay.
Well, could you explain that?
Sure. So in the aquifer district, you need 40% of the lot has to be green space. And even though it's a PDD, it doesn't override the aquifer district zoning. So my question is whether or not the loss of that 9,000 square feet would then put them under the 40% green space.
Okay. All right, Ken, you may continue. Anything else?
No, that's all I had, just clarifying on the number of spots and the existing, both for what we're talking about and then the additional.
All right, Indra.
So I have one question is, when it was approved, the previous design, do you think that you might have additional capacity to take care of this 9,000 square feet or 300 cubic feet increased infiltration? Do you remember?
Possibly. So we would have had to reevaluate the entire on-site drainage system to do that. We thought it was a lot simpler and cleaner if we just infiltrated the new previous area very clearly. Yeah, there's going to be an overflow at some point, but it is not part of the peak flow off the site. That would be delayed substantially. We could certainly look at running that, but I'm not sure that it really will get much because it's a 9.15 acre, and I forget off the top of my head what the total impervious area. It's a small increase in overall impervious area. And like I said, we're not getting a direct flow off the site. We're going through an infiltration system.
I
so
see,
that-
okay. All right,
But if
thank
that's a concern, we certainly can run that number.
you. Sure, yeah, thank you.
All right. Ed?
John brings up a point that I'm a little confused with. So we're doing this work, we're reducing it to 40% right now with this change.
I don't know, that's just a question for
Right.
them. It wasn't a statement, I don't know.
Okay. So everything to the left of that blue line, those trees will be removed.
No, right, so the area we're talking about is, there's a grassed area right now to the east, to the bottom of the building. There might be a tree or two in there, I don't think that there is. It's really grassed area right now, it's relatively flat. We'd be replacing the 9,000 square feet of that grassed area with parking, curbing.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. A few things. Just to be clear, the runoff from the 10,000 square feet, where is that going?
That ties into the existing drainage system that was originally approved for the site.
So a traditional subsurface drainage system?
Yes, right. And, you know, catch basins, deep sumps, woods, those type of things.
I see, okay. And are you doing anything to mitigate for the additional impervious surface that was not, you plan any, when you come up with the stormwater permit, are you doing anything to mitigate the loss of green space, the additional loss of green space?
So, two-part answer. Under the PDD, we have to increase, if we're increasing impervious area, we've got to allow for more recharge than existed previously. So that was a 300 cubic feet roughly of water going into the ground, so that's a mitigation. We're treating that, so the TSS removal, the pollutants are removed out of that area. we're not adding, we can't add green space anywhere else because we don't have anywhere else to add the green space, if you will, on that. And we will certainly check, I think we're okay, but I want to make sure we check the 40% so that we have an answer for that, for the commission. That will
So the basic is, it remains as a net loss. When you come back with the other stuff, it will remain a net loss of green space.
yes, that 9,000 square feet.
And did the planning board, you haven't been to the planning board yet?
No, we have not been to the planning board. We've got some, but not all comments are in. And that comment has not come up yet, that I've seen.
All right, maybe we should if we make comments to the planning board, maybe we should make that point, perhaps.
Vintage, right, where
Yes.
I just pulled it so that you can see some of where the parking will be,
Yeah.
the banked parking.
So, was there supposed to be a parking garage at one point
Not on this site. So,
on the site and back of the residential area?
yes, so,
Is that going in?
no. So the parking garage was part of an office development. The office was gonna be, again, there's an office and there's a small 5,000 square foot retail that was permitted originally for that site as an office development. On the other side of the driveway that comes in from Fourth Avenue, there was going to be a parking structure that would have, took care of the parking for the office, and it had, I think it was about 200 spaces that Lifetime would have had dedicated to their use. We
So
had
you're
parking-
replacing 39 spaces because you're losing 200 for something that's not being built?
Correct.
How does that work? Does that meet your needs?
No, to be honest, but it is what we can get on the site reasonably.
And there's no plans to put in additional parking in that back lot?
There's really no space to do that at this point in time.
Well, there was space for a building, an office building.
That, a portion of that area is now, there's a park across the street from the residential that's gonna be built. That takes up at least half of the area that was gonna be utilized for the parking structure. And so, at this point, the space that would have been needed for the total garage is no longer available for development. And the residential did not need the amount of parking that the office would have needed.
Well, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about mitigation for the loss of green space. Just these are just ideas. The first idea is when I see an asphalt desert, and I think heat island, and I think loss of green space, and I think that with the temperatures getting warmer and warmer, it's going to get very warm out there. But I also think that it's an ideal thing for one of those structures that goes up just 10 feet, and then they put solar panels on them. And I would think that that would be a very nice, I would consider that somewhat of a mitigation for putting in additional impervious with no replacement of green space. I would consider that a plus. Of course, the additional plus for your client is that they get the power off of it, for obvious reasons, and would be. So I'd like to ask for them to consider that. The other thing is, it's right next to that trail, that quarter mile trail, I guess. You're aware of that?
Yes.
And you are encroaching with parking spaces into that trail, is that correct?
No, we're,
Well, you're not putting spaces in the trail, but you're closer to it.
right, those spaces certainly will be closer to the trail, yes, that is.
All right, so here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about that the removal of the vegetation removes, what's the word? Canopy? No, it removes the visibility aesthetics. You know, you're surrounded by vegetation on the left. You're surrounded by vegetation on the right. And this project, when it comes back as a stormwater permit, will be asking us to approve additional 9,000 spaces.
No, 9,000 square feet.
1,000 square feet, right. Yeah, I'm getting my words.
That's okay. I think the client would be very happy if we can get 9,000 spaces, but that's
Yeah, I
another
know.
whole.
So I would see it as if an assessment could be made, a simple walkthrough, to identify, if it's true, any spots where they're opening it up to the visibility of asphalt and cars and parking and building. If they could plant something, if they notice something like that in different spots, if that's the case. Yeah, you know, I don't think it's asking for a lot, but I think it would be maintain the integrity of the walking trail.
So, just to be more clear thing, are you like some kind of a screening type
That's the word I was
vegetation?
looking, that's
Okay.
exactly the word I was looking. I couldn't think of the word screening. You go, well, it's a loss of screening. And, you know, although it's brief, it is nice to walk down that trail and have vegetation on both sides and see the trees and the birds. And maybe there's areas that could even be enhanced from the way it is now. Okay, and
Sure.
just based on a walkthrough, you might say, well, we could do this here and this here. And I think the commission would appreciate that.
Definitely.
I think that would be very cool, as they say. So those are the two suggestions I have for possible steps to mitigate for the loss of green space. Not to mention that I'd like to know when you come back, how many trees you've taken out.
Okay, that we can go out there and count them, because there's not that many trees in the area, but that would be fine, we can get that
And
information.
and then we'd like to have I would think the commission might ask for a one-to-one replacement. And they're nodding their heads, so that's traditionally what we ask for. And at this time, when the climate is changing, whatever you acknowledge the reason it's changing, trees are even more important than ever for a variety of reasons, and I don't have to say all that because I know you know it.
It is very, so in the area we're looking at right now, the previously approved land bank, the existing trees in that area are being relocated. Presuming they're in good health and stuff like that, they'll be relocated or replaced along the area. I failed to mention one minor area of additional impervious area. If you go down, there used to be an access from Middlesex Turnpike into the site before this was developed. There's a little white area. There's a lack of the sidewalk. It's probably 50, 100 square feet. The town would like us to put that sidewalk in, so we'll be replacing a piece of sidewalk that is in the buffer area, it's in the floodplain area and stuff like that. I don't think it's a big significant thing, but I wanted to mention that as well, so there'll be a small increase in that area.
All right, so that's all I have for the moment. Most of it, actually, my concerns were mostly with the stuff you're gonna come back with. But it popped into my mind, I just had to get it out for,
Greatly appreciate it. We'll be talking with the folks from Lifetime on Tuesday, so we can bring all this stuff very quickly and have responses.
Yeah. I gotta agree with Larry. I mean, if you look at that site like itself, you're basically the 10 spots you have is literally the only vegetation which is by Middlesex Turnpike, which is already approved, but you're basically gonna take out all of that. And then if you go where the other site, where the vast majority we're talking about, again, it's mostly grass, but to Larry's point, it's gonna be, you're basically taking out all of the, I understand parking and you have to balance that, but literally that whole site is gonna be basically asphalt. So there's really gonna be so I agree, there has to be some type of mitigation. That's a significant amount, I mean, of the, that's gonna be, there's really a lot of parking, as you look around town, have some type of balance between, like there is vegetation in the park, but, this is like all gonna be, so any real vegetation that's left is gonna be gone with the current approval. And then, I understand the one section's grass, but it is, better than nothing, but essentially that's gonna be gone too, so it's gonna be all concrete, they're all asphalt, so I think there has to be.
To be clear, the area you're seeing right now,
Yep.
that vegetation will either be relocated, or if it can't be, it will be replaced. So there will be more pavement there, absolutely, but that vegetation will remain. There will be some vegetation along Middlesex Turnpike. The area where the grass is, you're absolutely correct, there is going to be no vegetation there.
also, the other thing I wanted to ask, is there any opportunity for putting in tree islands anywhere that would survive in the middle of the parking lot, or a few, half a dozen tree islands?
Would have to look at that carefully, only in that typically a tree line is going to lose probably 2 spaces. And we haven't talked to the client, but I can anticipate that they don't want to lose any more spaces. They're going to be short a large amount of spaces of what they thought they were going to be having available to them. And so I'll bring that up. I
hesitate to say it because sometimes they don't survive. They're located in a heat island. They dry up and they die sometimes.
I've had some plants I planted at my house that had the issue, so yes, I'm very familiar.
It's not necessarily the greatest option unless they were going to shade the whole site with trees, and maybe they would have a watering plant or something.
I'll check with our landscape architects too, because again, that's something that we're looking at. I don't know, and I can't promise this without talking to the client. There may be some additional trees we can place elsewhere to densify some of the other areas. It's not going to address the heat island effect, but it might be able, maybe in a median, something, instead of 3 trees, we put 5 trees or something like that. I don't know if that would work as far as spacing the trees and stuff like that, but I certainly can talk to our landscape folks to see if that's a possibility.
Okay. Eileen, could you put up the overall plan, the aerial plan again?
Yep.
I have one last question.
Oh, sorry, I had just opened up the plan set. I was trying to see if we could zoom in on something. Yes.
Not that one. Oh, wait a minute. Yes. Okay, a little bit more, yeah.
You want up?
Yeah, a little bit more of the site, yeah. Okay,
More
right
of the
there.
site, right.
This is the parking lot. This parking lot looks like it's almost completely filled. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you, for the purposes of your presentation, did you happen to make sure you took the picture exactly when they were completely full? I was just wondering.
No, this is an area.
That's what I would do if I were you.
Oh, well, no.
I don't know if we have the resources to be able to pick out time spots on our aerials.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't planned, it was just what was the most available
It's
to
just
us.
a fortunate coincidence.
I suppose so, although we do visit the site quite a bit and it is usually pretty full.
Okay.
And we
Obviously, you're stating that the thing needs more parking spaces, so it's not surprising that, but I was saying, they made sure, look at that, they made sure they got a picture where the thing is completely filled, there's not one space left.
As part of the application to the planning board for the minor engineering change, we got parking lot data throughout the day for several weeks. And my understanding is, particularly in the summertime, people like to go down and spend the day. There's a lot of programs for young children. They spend the whole day there at the pool out in the back and here and stuff like that. It was 5 o'clock this afternoon. It was 85–90% full when we were there, and cars were coming in and coming out pretty regularly and stuff. So I think the parking data, the information that I saw, and I can't remember off the top, there was some real, they had over 2,000 cars per day in the parking lot.
Really?
And that was turnover, so didn't count how much time they were in there and stuff like that. That's roughly filling the parking lot 3.5, 4 times over in a given day. And that was for, I think, June, if I remember right.
Yeah, we have quarterly data, which we're happy to send over as well.
Apparently, their pricing must know what the market can bear.
And this is unofficial, but my understanding is this Lifetime has the highest membership of any. And
It's funny, because I saw a few people on Facebook complaining about the pricing has gone up since they started, which is expected, and I see that they do know their market.
they do, and I would not be surprised if the pricing here is higher than somewhere else, to perhaps discourage people. I mean, there are other Lifetime athletics around, and they're not as busy as this one. But that I can't say as a fact.
Okay, all right. So, I guess Is there anyone else that wants to say anything that's in the audience about this? This is Lifetime Fitness, or you folks from Lifetime Fitness?
We're just kind of we're just interested in learning.
Are you clients of Lifetime Fitness?
There's projects in our neighborhood that, so don't really know how the cushion works at all, so.
Well, we're very friendly. You can say anything you want if you want.
I can attest to that for many years, so.
All right. Okay, it's nice to have visitors. We don't often get visitors who just want to see what goes on. Okay, so there's no one in the audience that wants to talk. John and Eileen, do you have anything further in this?
Well, just maybe a question for Lindsay. When you do file the stormwater permit, do you know if the Board of Health witnessed test pits where you're doing infiltration? And if not, you should make sure that they do.
Yes. I think they did, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, okay.
All right, so you'll check into that. Yeah. All right, so we have a negative conditional determination like the last one. I'll ask Eileen or John to review it.
Okay, it looks like, I think we're gonna have to make some changes to this on the fly, because at the time, we weren't, we hadn't really come to this conclusion about needing two
Yep.
different permits.
Do these folks have a draft copy of it?
Yes.
They did get that earlier on today. So, I mean, things like the sheets and all that's all correct. So, okay, so this is for project 186 Middlesex Turnpike. The applicant is proposing to construct, oh, sorry, I hadn't fixed that yet, 20 parking spaces that were previously land banked. So I guess I'm removing the reference to the new parking spaces, right?
No, that's in their application. I think it should just be in
Okay.
the decision, not the findings.
Okay, that's fine. And 19 new parking spaces, landscaping, stormwater infrastructure, and sidewalk improvements. The land bank spaces were to be partly within the riverfront area and partly within bordering lands subject to flooding, which is the 100-year floodplain. Those spaces were accounted for in the design of the existing stormwater management system and were actually shown and previously approved on a plan of record for 122-574, construction of Lifetime Fitness. The rest of the proposed project was to be outside the resource areas and buffer zones. Oh, sorry, I thought I had put this version in here. It's 19, right? The 19 new parking spaces not previously permitted will drain to a StormTech SC 310 subsurface system. The impervious surface will be increased by about 9,000 square feet and total disturbance will be about 19,000 square feet. The work is partly within the riverfront area and partly within the BLSF. So the decision was for work as outlined in the project above, prior to beginning construction on the site, sediment barriers shall be installed per the reference plan, like compost filter socks or something similar.
Excuse me, so condition 1 should change. So that's where we clarified that we're only approving,
Yeah, we should say, this decision is only for work, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
yeah,
Previously approved.
yeah, we can change it tomorrow.
Work,
but that's
blah,
what-
blah, blah. Okay, I'm just
And
gonna,
that's not for 19,000 square feet. We are talking about here only 10,000 square feet.
Correct, yeah.
it's okay, I just wrote change and I'll put a nicer sentence in there that summarizes. Or John will, because he's good at that. Any excavated materials not reused on site should be disposed of off-site in a legal manner. Nothing should be disposed within a wetland. No tracking of sediments onto public roadways shall be allowed and sweep daily if so. Stockpiling shall be confined to location depicted on the reference plans. No stockpiling within the buffer to the wetland. During construction, trash and debris shall, wait a second, this must be an old one, sorry. Number 6. Was there a swale? I took that from something else, I guess.
No, yeah,
Sorry
there's
about
no
that.
swale, but
I don't know where that
Swale's gone.
It's gone now. There should be no filling or grading of the property under this decision beyond that shown in the approved plans, and all drainage patterns shall be maintained. No dewatering of the site unless we review a plan. The operations and maintenance plan shall be updated and a copy sent to the Conservation Commission. The updated O&M plan shall be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Members of the Commission or representatives shall have the right to enter upon premises to inspect conditions, and any non-compliance shall be deemed a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. Something to add?
Well, they don't really need to amend the O and M plan now because we're not approving
Because we're
it.
not,
Yeah, we're not.
it's no longer, the
Yeah.
wet, let me remove that, because we'll include that in the stormwater permit.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So forget it for this, sorry about that.
Okay, so is there anything else from the commission on it? I think this is, again, straightforward. It's a previously approved conversion of material of green space to parking lot. All right, if there's nothing further, could I have a motion to issue a negative conditional determination to the project at 186 Middlesex Turnpike for Lifetime Fitness, for the project as has been outlined in the conditions, which is the previously approved 10,000 square foot space. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Kent.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? It approved by 4-0-0. Is there some surety?
No, it's a determination.
Determination, okay. So, all right, so you'll get back to us on those suggestions for us, and I guess during the stormwater application, I guess.
And we'll go through and address the stormwater comment, or in our stormwater file, we'll address your comments for this evening.
Right. We very much appreciate if the client could show some flexibility on that.
It's going to
some
have
of
to
that.
go through the commission.
I think they need the parking spaces, so I'm sure they'll be somewhat flexible. We'll see how much we can do.
Probably not meeting until August 20th.
Okay, work your magic, sir.
But we'll try.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now, we have, next on the agenda, we seem to have the continued public hearing on proposed changes to the wetlands bylaw, which is to change the bylaw, which will authorize therefore changes in our regulations as needed to deal with climate change. So before we do that, are you here for something in particular, sir?
I'm just an engineer in Burlington resident who's interested in conservation, ecology, things like that in general, and I figured I wanted to learn about you guys.
Are you a conservation type person by trade?
No, I'm a chemical engineer and computational scientist by grade.
Chemical engineer.
Should
We have something in common.
Brendan introduced himself to us recently. He's interested in possibly being a steward, and we thought he might also be maybe interested in being on the commission. So he said he would come along and see how it runs.
All right. Well, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to talk to you. I'd be happy to talk to any of you folks if you're interested. We are looking for, since the subject was brought up, we are looking for one more conservation commissioner. Periodically, it turns over. And so we have an opening that so far we have not been able to fill. It's not a particularly intense commitment of time. But it should, you should know what it is, but it's not particularly, would you agree with that? It's not particularly intense? No. It's not. No. So, if you're interested in some aspect of conservation, whether it be wetlands plants, or you happen to be technical and like to look at, you get happiness from looking at stormwater calculations.
Burn therapy for that, by the way.
There's therapy for that, yes. Or you're interested in land conservation. We try to do a little bit on land conservation. We have some conservation areas. You can sort of direct where you spend your time in. So if you're at all interested, I'd be happy to talk to any of the four people here, okay? We'd love to talk to you about it and explain the kinds of things that we do. Some of it you might consider boring, but there's other things that we do that are more interesting too. So basically, one of the base things that we have to do is we have to permit projects so there's no effects on wetland resource areas. And that means no effect on streams, on something called riverfront area, on bordering land subject to flooding, a whole host of things, including wildlife habitat and so forth. Yeah. sign that?
Larry needs to sign it.
I'll sign that. Yep, that's fine, thank you. All right, so, they'll give you my telephone number or contact information if you want it. Okay, go. Mine is on the website?
Someone's with Bella. So he said it's not.
Well, if you call my home phone, I won't answer it, because I almost never use it. You gotta get either a cell phone or an email, okay? All right, so, that applies to you too as well, of course. So, why don't we go to the next item on the agenda? Continued public hearing, proposed changes to Burlington Wetlands Bylaw, Article 14, Section 1, to incorporate what we call climate resiliency. Okay, we left this open, and we talked a great deal about that aspect of it. John or Eileen, do you have any comments, or would you like to review anything for anybody that might be watching?
No, but I'd just like to mention the logistics. I know you're considering changing the meeting in August, and if you do, I would recommend you close the hearing tonight on the stormwater bylaw. The meeting on August 24th would be 2 or 3 days after the deadline for publication of the warrant article, so it will have already gone to print. So if you should probably make a determination now on the August meeting, so you can decide whether or not you're going to close this hearing on the stormwater bylaw.
All right.
I've already been committee.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, which means anybody can make a comment, ask a question, what we're doing, or whatever the case, in case anybody has any questions. And what we are simply doing is we have a Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Article 14, and many towns, conservation commissions, city conservation commissions are changing their wetland bylaws, recognizing that climate change is happening. And so we're adding in that the resource area interests that are protected by this bylaw, we have a whole list, like our interests are public and private water supply, groundwater supply we're interested in protecting, flood control, wetlands help with slowing down the rate at which a flood proceeds to flood other areas, erosion and sedimentation control, storm damage prevention, including water quality, the prevention and control of pollution, protection of fisheries, protection of wildlife habitat, protection of rare species habitat, and protection of recreational and educational values. These are the current resource area interests that are protected by this bylaw. And we are proposing to add in some additional language. We're proposing to add carbon/greenhouse gas storage and sequestration, and carbon and greenhouse gas mitigation. And what we're talking about here is ways of storing carbon, okay? If you have trees that are taken down, you may consider certainly not grinding them up, and you may consider leaving them on site, partially on site, because essentially trees are a form of carbon storage. And so, or we may have, be putting in additional planting requirements for replacing green space for mitigation and things like that, okay? And so the reason why you'd want to do this is called carbon, greenhouse gas storage, and sequestration. And so we're putting that language in. The next interest, again related to climate resiliency, is presentation of heat island effect, and so forth. And so, obviously, when you have oceans of asphalt, oceans of buildings, paved walkways, roadways, they create what is known as the heat island effect. We've already had in this town a study to look at prevention of heat islands and so forth in the Vine Brook watershed area. Is that correct, John?
Yes.
And what did they made some recommendations. You remember off the top of your head, you or Eileen, what the kinds of things, just generally?
Well, it was heavily in favor of nature-based solutions in order to do so, creating more vegetation, swales, rain gardens,
Reducing impervious surfaces.
reducing impervious surface. And the whole idea is that as the weather gets warmer, it becomes, in the old-fashioned office park with oceans of asphalt, it becomes very, very unpleasant to walk along the sidewalk or in the parking lot and things like that. When it's, I mean, the coolest temperature in Phoenix, Arizona, in the middle of the summer now, they said the last week or two has been, it cools down from 110 to no lower than 90. That's pretty warm. So that's prevention of heat island effect, which impervious surface creates. Protection of biodiversity, okay? We need to add that in because certainly we need to think about things that are heat tolerant, protection of existing biodiversity, but when we're planting, we have to think about things that are heat tolerant because that's the direction that everything is going these days. Eileen or John, you have any comment on that one at all? Anything further? Don't have to, I just want to make sure I don't. I'm trying to be courteous and ask. Okay, the last one that we're adding in is the mitigation, and this is a sort of an umbrella thing, a mitigation of impacts from climate change. And again, that encompasses anything that we can't think of, basically. So that's what's essentially, this language is for incorporating the word we use, climate resiliency. And we're just putting in these interests into our bylaw so that when the thought occurs to us that we really need to, when we have regulations that will apply to projects, that we are thinking about this and we may end up holding hearings to change our regulations at some point. Okay, so we need, I mean, one of the obvious things is to look at what we can do to the maximum extent feasible without preventing the use of property, is prevent trees from being cut down.
Just one last step.
Okay, so, I mean, that's one of the things that I think we would have, we would consider regulations. I don't know what we would put, but and if the project requires trees to be cut down, then you'd like them to be replaced.
I think Frank has some suggestions for you.
Now? You want, would you?
So if the
Oh,
commission,
please.
if the commission would indulge me, so John mentioned that this was up tonight, since we're going to be here. I did a little bit of research. I think it's very good overall. Two things that occurred to me that might be something to consider. The first, I think, is going back to that 2022 MVP, final report. That has a lot of really good specific information. You've referenced some of it already, Larry. I'm wondering if that could be somehow referenced in here, that might then point people to that specific report that has all kinds of items to be addressed and stuff like that. I don't know if it can be put in here or if it may be attached at the end as a reference, that, according with this. And then you talked about the heat stuff. So one of the things that I've been really interested in over the course of my career is a change in rainfall. So when I started as an engineer in 1974.
Really? You're that old?
I'm that old, imagine that, I'm gonna crumble any minute now, that's why
Boy, Matt, right?
Lindsay's here to pick up when I fall and pick up the dust.
Lindsay did you know you were working with an ancient?
I had a feeling that based on his knowledge.
All lack thereof. She has all the new knowledge, I'm the old stuff. Anyhow, there was something called Technical Paper 40, which was essentially an atlas of rainfall in the United States. And it was an amazing thing. You used it when I worked on the original flood studies back in the early 70s for the Army Corps of Engineers, for what is now FEMA. And you use that data for your rainfall. And the data that people use are 24-hour duration storm. And typically it varies, but it's a 2-year, frequency, 2% chance any given year. It goes up to, the 10-year frequent, 24-hour, 25, and 100. And then halfway through my career in the 90s, there was a new document put out by the Cornell University that had updated rainfall data based upon current. Your data from the TP40 was up to 1960. It varied maybe from 40 to 100 years of data. Statistically, they evaluated, and that's how they came up with these numbers. From 1960 to probably early 1990, Cornell took more data, and it came up with different numbers, although there's some interesting consistencies. And then the mid-2000s and up to recently, NOAA and other people came together and put together even more updated rainfall data. Again, so just to sort of give a flavor of what has changed over the course of those 50, 60 years, whatever we're at this point in time, a little more than 60 years. So a 2-year storm, 24-hour rainfall depth from the TP40 in 1961 was about 3.1 inches. And again, it's statistic, it varies across the country, so you have to be very specific to get a number. But generally in the Boston area, that rainfall amount for a 2-year, 24-hour storm was 3.1 inches. Jump ahead to 1993, when the Cornell study comes out, that same number is about 2.75 inches. Jump into 2015, that 2-year, 24-hour rainfall is about 3.26 inches. Relatively consistent for the 2-year. I'm going to jump to the 100-year storm, however. So going back to TP40, 1961, the 100-year rainfall in this area was about 6.7 inches. In 1993, based on the data they had for Cornell, that's 7.5 inches. When you jump to 2015 for this area, that 100-year total 24-hour rainfall is about 8.15 inches. So you can see there's about a 25% increase in the total rainfall over a 24-hour period.
And that tells you the rainfall is getting
more intense.
More intense.
And higher. Now, the 2-year wasn't too much, but the 10, the 25-year have somewhat similar. So jumping from TP40 for a 25-year storm, it was 5.3 inches in 1961. To the new NOAA Atlas 14 data, it's 6.33 inches. Where I'm going with this is I've been involved in doing peer reviews for other communities, and they have wetlands bylaws, other bylaws. They often reference specifically in their bylaw what rainfall data to use. Now, back in 2015, the EPA basically adopted the NOAA Atlas 14 data to be used. They haven't got around to changing the Wetland Protection Act, but the data that is supposed to be being used is, in fact, the NOAA Atlas 14 data.
Didn't we recently update ours, though, Eileen?
We updated the stormwater bylaw.
The stormwater bylaw with NOAA,
14?
NOAA 14?
Oh, plus, and yeah, I think they're talking right now that the NOAA data has a range. The numbers are given the other one, but they have a range, and they're talking about using the 90 percentile of that range in the near future is what people are talking about, at least at the EPA.
How many inches would that be, the 90% of the NOAA 14 range?
So I will, so based on this, this would put that up to somewhere around 9 inches roughly.
Right. I think we knew it was about 8.9 or so, something like that. Yeah, okay.
So those would be my recommendations. Again, I think there's a lot of good stuff in that 2022 report.
Where would that fit, Frank, if we were to reference it?
There's a section in here that, and you know this better than mine, regulation, section 1.8. I'm not sure if it fits in there exactly, but certainly the stormwater, NOAA 14 data, but you might reference that, in accordance with some of the recommendations that come out of that.
Do we normally see references in our bylaws at all like that? don't
The
know.
one problem with putting it in the bylaws, then you have to go to town meeting to change it. If you just put it in the regulations, it's much easier to update it, you know?
No, that's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah, it might be better to put something like that in the regulations.
Sure. That way you have control. No offense to town meeting, but it's cumbersome.
Yes.
Frank, I know you've done a lot of work in Burlington, and I think, at least on my part, I've come to know you as being an exceptional engineer doing various things related to your profession. If you've happened to see other towns that have things that are of interest you want to pass on to us, or any reference you want to pass on to us in this regard, regarding, well, obviously anything, but climate change in particular, if you happen to see what other towns are doing, I'd love to read anything you forward.
Okay, sure, I can certainly take a look at that.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Okay, yes, sir. Why don't you just state your name for the record, and so whoever's taking the notes has it. So hand them the microphone, just pass them the microphone, and just sit there and ask any question you want.
Yeah, so my name's Brendan.
And where do you live?
Burlington.
No, the street, normally, the way you do it.
Arlington Road?
State your address.
Okay, 24 Arlington Road.
Okay, great. Okay, now you're clear for.
So, I'm interested in the climate change problem. One thing and just in general, like, economic activity tends to destroy biodiversity. That's like a fact of human history. And that's accelerating because of things like climate change and technological progress, industrialization. So I'm interested in the concept that it's been mentioned once to me privately by Eileen, and I heard it mentioned here too, like a tree bylaw, something like a one-to-one replacement for green space or trees that are destroyed or cut down. I guess what I want to say is I'm not sure that's enough.
Right.
Because if you cut down a tree in its adulthood, you're kind of cutting off the life cycle of that lineage, so to speak. And then even if you plant a new tree, maybe if you had allowed that tree to continue in its life cycle and its development, it would have planted 5 new trees on its own through the spreading of its seeds. I mean, I'm making numbers up here, but my point is that I'm not sure that we should be intervening at all with the wildlife that already exists, because we've already caused so much damage. So why should we approve any projects that want to cut down trees or remove green space at all at this point?
Well, you've touched upon, I don't know if anybody wants to answer before I answer at all. No. Okay, you've touched upon a number of issues, okay? And if any of you want to say anything, you're welcome to. If you want to say anything, you're welcome to. First of all, we have a few areas where we require replacement of trees. Things that are under our jurisdiction are things related to resource areas. And there's a number of, defined resource areas in the state law and in our wetlands bylaw that, as I said before, includes streams and riverbank and bank of a stream and bordering vegetative wetland and land subject to flooding. They all have very specific definitions. And the job of the commission is to protect projects that are near there. We do have the authority under our regulations to require tree replacement, okay, in there. And in our stormwater bylaw, we have recently added, and it's not nearly enough. What I'm saying is not nearly enough, okay? So I do understand what you're saying. In our stormwater bylaw, which we administer the permits for full permits and abbreviated permits, and right now in the full permits, We, right, areas that are in the 15-foot setback for a project that's on a lot, the back setback, which is not usually being disturbed anyway, we require them, unless they get a waiver, to not take down the trees in that back 15-foot of a lot that only has a stormwater permit, not even a wetlands permit. That was approved by town meeting, okay? And there was a long, lengthy discussion about property rights and, you know, stuff, people concerned about having free use of their property, but that seemed to be a reasonable approach that people seemed to agree to, and they did. Now, if there's additional trees on a piece of property at this point, like in a stormwater permit, that are necessary to be taken down, we often ask for them to replace some trees. And I would think because we ask nicely, we usually get a lot of cooperation. People are generally cooperative. They try to help us and put the trees, replace trees. The other issue you're bringing up is replacing a one-to-one tree. You said is not nearly enough. Well, if you're looking at the amount of carbon storage in a big mature oak tree that's being taken down, replanting a 4-foot high, 1.5-inch diameter tree really doesn't make it as a one-for-one for the part that's necessary, I think. And if I misstate anything, anybody can say anything they want. Can just tell me, you know, I got it wrong. But I think it does not mitigate for the loss of the transpiration, the intake of CO2 and the loss of the transpiration producing the oxygen. Doesn't mitigate for the loss of carbon storage that that large mature oak tree is going to be missing now. And so what you're suggesting, or what you have essentially stated, is a one-to-one tree replacement may not be the best measure to use. I think that's what you're saying.
That is essentially what I was saying, and I'm the farthest thing in the room, I'm sure, from a legal expert, but I'm imagining probably what would be closer to ideal, if unfortunately infeasible, is preventing the trees from being destroyed in the first place.
Obviously. One of the things I can tell you, now also you mentioned the tree bylaw. Now, we're not considering here a tree bylaw, okay? But tree bylaws are, depending on the language, with private property, I can just tell you is a very contentious issue. It generates a lot of debate because people don't want to lose the loss of being able to use their land. And this commission understands that because there are certain private property rights that you really don't want to infringe upon, and you don't want it to have it challenged in court either. And so we try to work with everyone to see if we can come up with what's the best solution for something. But we're not proposing at all a tree bylaw at the moment. We've looked at it, but we're not proposing it. One of the things that we've thought of, but we're not proposing it here, is a municipal tree planting program. Some towns have a municipal tree planting programs at, you know, for the parks and things like that, and street trees and things like that. And anybody who's taking down a tree in private property can put money into a fund to mitigate it, and the tree gets planted somewhere else. So my bottom line for you, sir, is if you join the commission, you don't have to just join, you can do it anyway. You can help us develop that stuff. Okay. So, I mean, it's not that easy. Everything takes a lot of time. Okay, but if that's something that interested you, commissioners sort of work on whatever they're interested in, so to speak, aside from the main objective of providing permits to projects. And we've been to town meeting a number of times, and they have generally been supportive. We're careful with what we propose, and town meeting has been very cooperative, usually with the things that we propose because they're reasonable. Okay. So if that is something that interests you, you want to get involved with the work of the commission, that's just one of many areas that you could get familiar with.
I appreciate that, thank you.
All right, and you'd be welcome to talk to us more, of course. Okay, at any time. Okay, so, Mr. DePietro, anything further?
No, I don't have to think about the references. I have seen some towns having, I'm not sure how they do this, a replacement per size of tree. And I don't know exactly how they did that, but, you know, if it's a 12-inch tree, you need 3 4-inch trees or something like that. I'm making things up right there. But I think you have to have some landscape architecture science behind how you do that to be
That's
able
right.
to stand up.
That's why it takes time, because of that. It takes some science, and you have to really look into it, what makes sense. You're absolutely correct. Right, and it's something, that is something to be thought about and worked on, okay? But right now, what we have here is just the broad language of writing in climate resiliency into our bylaw is one of the interests that needs to be considered. And that's all we're doing here. There's no specifics whatsoever. Okay? Those would be in regulations.
That makes sense.
So, you know, reducing impervious surface and preventing trees from being cut down, I mean, those are, increase the amount of shade, stuff, I mean, those are all worthy goals. And we'll be looking at that more, I guess. I mean, the other thing I'll point out is that protecting biodiversity, you're going to have temperatures that are going up and up and up, it appears. You're going to have windstorms that are more severe. And you're going to have rainstorms that Mr. DePietro said is, you know, we're getting more intense rainfalls. So when you have planting plans, those things have to be taken into consideration. I mean, there has to be heat tolerant, and you got to be able to handle that amount of water. So, Eileen or John, anything more on this?
No, I think Frank's suggestions are great, and we should definitely keep them in mind for the regulations where we can get into more depth. And he was just reminding me, I think, something we came up recently about trees, and Arlington does have an actual, they have assigned a value per inch or something like that for tree replacement. So these are things that we should definitely consider when we're
Right.
going further into this,
Right.
down this road.
Well, I mean, you do currently have a requirement in the wetland regulations for tree replacement for cutting the trees in the buffer zone. So it would be a matter of maybe making those stricter. But you do currently have a requirement.
Well, not stricter, but different, using our criteria for replacement,
Right.
instead of something as simple as one-to-one, as you alluded to.
And you should also put in regulations, something where we continuously have problems with people planting cultivars and non-native species.
Yes.
And, we want things planted that are native to the area, even preferably, genotypes that are from eastern Mass, from, grown in native plant nurseries.
I mean, sometimes, I should point out, in case people are watching, when things are in our regulations, we periodically, not regularly, but periodically extend waivers, because there's something, they're doing the best they can, they came up with the best alternative on a small, narrow lot, or something like that, and sometimes it's the least impactful alternative they came up with, but they're still in within the 20-foot, a little bit into the 20-foot no disturb zone, and we waive the extra 2 feet that they're encroaching, for example, okay, but, so, I mean, it is just semi-routine that we do that, and people ask for waivers all the time, if it's reasonable.
I think there's another thing too, that
Yeah.
we go to the state MACC, we're there to get educated, and it's ongoing, but you don't see any programs that are really in the towns that do that same thing to the residents. I think that's what
You
we're
mean
really trying
programs
to do.
You're talking about outreach and education?
Yeah, clearly education.
Yeah, I mean, we do our best to talk about it, We talk about the fact that you cut down the trees and your yard's already wet, and you had a bunch of mature oak trees that soak up 100 gallons per day per tree, you may have more water. You may have a pond in your backyard. And we try to tell people this.
I look at the devastation that we're just watching now with Vermont and New York. It's unbelievable. Is there something that we're not doing that would slow that down? It's devastating. I got friends in Ludlow.
Speaking of
They
rain,
don't have a
I've
house.
seen projections that we're headed for 11 inches in a 24-hour period.
I think that might be 2050 or 2060.
2050 is what I saw. So that is a lot of rain. That's an awful lot of rain.
The one piece of data I'll throw out, the worst storm we had in Massachusetts was 1955 flood, and that was a rainfall, bless you, of 19 inches, western Massachusetts, in a 24-hour period. So, almost Noah's flood.
Get your ark ready. All right, so I think we've had some good public participation on this, and I think we should close the hearing. Could I have a motion to close the hearing for the proposed changes to the Burlington Wetland Bylaw, Article 14, Section 1, to incorporate climate resiliency?
No move.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 400. The hearing on these proposed changes to go to town meeting is now closed. All right, so are you going to send a package over for the town meeting, September?
I already have, because the deadline was a week or so ago, so if there had been any changes, I was just going to send them a new one. So, yes.
Town council is currently reviewing it.
All right. Do you anticipate any problems from them?
I don't think so.
All right. All right, so I guess we can move on.
Thank you, folks, for listening and putting up with us. So,
Thank you.
I say you, Frank.
It's always a pleasure
Yeah.
same here.
for Mr. DePietro and company.
Lindsay will be back. So
Yeah, I'm
will I.
sure I will.
Look forward to that. All right. Okay, so now, next is, to wrap this up, planning board comments.
I'll certainly comment on lifetime to the planning board,
You'll comment on what we said here,
lifetime fitness, yeah.
okay, about the loss of screening and all that, and the suggestions that were made, please. All right. Yeah, okay. Subcommittee and staff reports? Other business? Anything under other business? How about the date for the meeting, next meeting? I brought up at the last meeting that we were scheduled for August 10th, I guess. And I had something that I could go to, but I would skip it if the meeting is then. That's not critical that I go. So I was throwing it out there about whether you could do August 24th, I guess. Is that?
Right, Bill's not here, but at the site visit yesterday, he said he would prefer the 24th.
Same
Really?
here.
Well, you'd prefer the
I
24th.
won't be here to 10.
Okay with me.
Good with you?
Not going anywhere.
So we'll do the 24th. Do we need a motion?
Yep.
I have a motion to change the next meeting to, will occur on August 24th, 2023.
So moved.
Second?
Second, Ken?
Favor?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 400, the next meeting will be August 24th, 2023. Are we going to do it at 6:30, or do we want to move the time at all? Is everyone okay with it?
Was the room available?
Yeah.
Okay. No, 6:30 is probably best. We better tell them,
I mean, personally, I prefer 7. It's easier to get out of the house after dinner,
I have no preference.
but I just don't care that much. So, all right. Next, we have, and the next meeting after that is September 14th. And finally, the next complicated item is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Second, Ken?
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote of 400. This July 13th meeting, 2023 of the Burlington Conservation Commission is adjourned.